Hello everyone, hope everyone is doing well. Today we're going to learn about another type of market structure that we see in our economy, and it is called monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition is somewhat of a blend of perfect competition and monopoly. So a blend between. What this means is that during certain time periods it will act like the firm will act like a monopoly, but then in other time periods it is going to be having like the qualities of perfect competition. So, what kind of firms are in this? We actually see these firms more so on a daily basis. So, think about something like potato chips. So, under this potato chips, we have so many different brands that produce potato chips. We have all these other different kinds of companies that produce potato chips, and the list goes on and on and on. And so, there are many firms producing potato chips. If you think about soft drinks, they're the same thing. There are many companies producing different types of soft drinks. So we have ginger ale, we have colas like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and then we also have maybe other kind of drinks like maybe cherry cola and things like that. If we look at the same thing with water, we have, or more specifically, bottled water. We see that bottled water has so many different brands. They're all selling a product which is very similar, but the brand is each brand has its own quality. Same thing with if we go with breakfast cereals or like even like automobiles. All these things have many different brands. And so, what these companies do, that we see that within each of them, each of these categories, we see a lot of brands. So, if we take like automobiles, just like, if, for example, in automobiles, we have Toyota, GM, Honda, Hyundai, Ford, and then we have Volkswagen, Audi, and we have BMW. Although I think Volkswagen does own Audi, so maybe we'll just say Volkswagen, BMW, and then if we go to other places, like in Britain, we have Land Rover, or like many other companies. So in France, we have Renault, and many other, of course. Another last one is Fiat, and many other companies. So all these companies make cars of different types, but even within, like if we think like, oh no, some companies make SUVs and sedans, but if we think about it, like Toyota makes sedans, GM makes sedans, Ford makes sedans, they all make the same similar kind of sedans. The cars take you from point A to point B. They give you some level of comfort. They have air conditioning, nice seats. They have nice driving experience. So all those things are there. But we have many different companies operating within. And so then comes the idea that, okay, why do we have all these companies operating or producing very similar products? So, what these companies do is that they want us to think that their product is better than their competitors, than those offered by their competitors. So, they're trying to and this is mainly done through advertising. So basically, companies try to convince us that, let's say, Toyota Corolla is a much better sedan than their competitors, or Volkswagen's maybe their brand, the Taycan, is better than the other companies or the brands offered by other companies. So through advertising and through kind of customer relations and through other means, they try to show that their product is better. It's not just through quality, because quality wise, the cars, they are not vastly different. Some may be slightly better than others, but this idea that my car is better than my competitors is reinforced mainly through advertising. Now let's look at some graphs to understand how this is happening. But before that, since I said the monopolistic competitive firms, they are kind of a mixture between monopoly and perfect competition. So the idea is that in the short run, these companies are operating like monopolies, but in the long run, they become firms. They become like firms operating in a perfectly competitive market. So what this means that let's think about maybe a car like Tesla. So when Tesla first came in, it was kind of operating like a monopoly. So basically everybody, it was a very unique product. It was like, we have this electric vehicle, which is very unique. So in the short run, Tesla was there operating like a monopoly because if I wanted to get an electric car, that was my only option. But in the long run, other car companies started to produce electric vehicles. So we have Volkswagen has their ID4. We have Audi producing, I believe it's the Q4. We have Ford producing the Mach-E, and many other car companies are producing electric vehicles. And so because of that, now we have much more options available. And so so slowly, Tesla's now, instead of being the sole provider of electric vehicles, there are many more options available. But even if there's something like, let's say, potato chips, let's say, or let's talk about something like breakfast cereals. So even with breakfast cereals or something that has already a lot of firms available producing very similar products, what the company does here is that with many substitutes, the companies still will reinforce the notion, and mainly through advertising, that their company is, or their product is of better quality than those offered by other companies. So even after, even when you have many other options available, let's say for potato chips, you have Ruffles, you have Lay's has many different options, and there are other companies also producing it. There's still the idea through advertising that's trying to believe that your product is better. So because your product is better, then your customers will be buying that option more. And so you kind of operate like a small monopolist within that frame. But as time goes by, maybe other competitors comes in because it's easy to enter and exit in this kind of a firm. So maybe other companies come in and then they become more saturated. So there are more companies available to operate. So let's look at an example. Let's say we have a firm operating in a perfectly competitive market. Now, in the short run, we will actually draw two graphs. One will be in the short run, one will be in the long run. And it will show what's the difference between them. Since we said that these companies act like they are in a monopoly situation, at least in the short run. So we will see what happens first in the short run, and then we will see what happens in the long run. So this is short run. So in the short run, since this firm has somewhat of a monopoly power within the short run on its firm or on its industry, so if this is my demand curve, just like in the monopoly, since they're facing a downward sloping demand curve, they don't take the price as given. Since you have some degree of brand loyalty, you can differentiate. You can charge different prices, and you can see based on your market demand, you can charge a lower price or higher price. So we have a downward facing demand curve faced by these firms, and there is a marginal revenue curve like that. We also have a marginal cost curve like this, and just like before, we have our average total cost like that. So in the short run, we may have a firm that's in a monopolistically competitive market earn profits or losses, economic profits or losses. So this is why we say it is similar to a monopolist, because I'll just write some notes here so we can come back to those. So the firm can earn economic profits or losses in the short run. So the firm has the ability to earn economic profits or losses. We use the same idea as a monopolist to find the profits. So my first part is find where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So my first thing that I'll do is find the point where my marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is this point. So I go down here and find that quantity, which I'll name Q star. Then I'll go up to the price or to the demand curve to find what price I should charge, which is going to be P star. And then finally at that Q star, to find my profit, I find my ATC star, which is to find the average total cost. So my profit is going to be, I'll just write it here, profit equals P minus ATC times Q that I have. So in the short run, I could earn profits. I could also earn losses, supposing I have the case where my average total cost is above the demand curve. So maybe my average total cost goes like this. Then in this case, my Q star, MR equals MC at my Q star, I go straight up to find my P star, which is here. Now my ATC star would be, again, if I go straight up, it is way up here. So we have ATC star up here. So I would still plug it in this formula down here to find my profit. And in this case, I would be earning a loss. So in the short run, as we saw that we can see that the monopolistically competitive firm acts very much like a monopoly within a very specific definition. So if I'm looking at, let's say, if I'm looking at bottled water being sold in the market of Tennessee or in Nashville, Tennessee, then within that Nashville, Tennessee, there may be just like Voss and Fiji Water and Aquafina and all those others operating, but maybe their people really prefer Voss over others. So Voss would be acting like a monopoly within that market and would be earning a short-run economic profit. But now in the long run, what will happen is, as we said, that in some degrees, these firms also act like a monopoly or a firm operating in perfect competition. And in what respect it is, we do believe that to some degree, there is going to be free entry and exit in these industries. So it may be difficult for someone like us to open up a multi-million-dollar chips empire in a couple of years, but it is possible. Or what would we mean here is that another company might think that it is possible to just open up a branch of their company that produces new varieties of potato chips. So in that case, what will happen is we would still face a downward sloping demand curve, and we have our marginal revenue curve like that. We're going to have a marginal cost curve like here. But in the long run, just like with perfectly competitive markets, because of free entry and exit, our economic profit, pi here meaning profit, will be equal to 0. So what we notice from perfectly competitive markets is that during this time, we see our price equals average total cost. In this case, what we will see is that the average total cost curve is going to be kind of tangent to the demand curve at the profit maximizing level. So again, to find the profit maximizing output, we find the point where MR equals MC, which is at this point. I go down here to find the Q star. Then I go up to the demand curve, and since it is it is tangent to the demand curve, the ATC curve is tangent to the demand curve, so I will find this is my P star, which equals ATC star. So in the long run then, P minus ATC times Q will equal to 0. Now, of course, this is not something static, a static concept. The demand can change. We may see markets that are shrinking in size, maybe because companies are leaving or populations are leaving from those cities. So we may have demand shifting to the left. If that happens, then firms will be earning losses. Then after a while, we may have some firms leave the market, which then readjusts the demand curve, and we get a different equilibrium. On the other hand, we may have firms entering the market because the population is growing or there's new innovations. So we may see maybe demand shift to the right. So then there is going to be another new MR curve. And then we may see that the price may be different, and we may see the firms that were initially earning a long run equilibrium profit of 0 is now going to earn a. So this is basically the difference between short run and long run. So if we look at these two firms, so a perfectly competitive or monopolistic competition, to recap, we can just write what are some of the qualities of those firms. So first is, number one is they act like a monopolist, and I'll put that in quotes, in the short run, but in the long run, because of free entry and exit, their economic profits go to 0. Okay. And as a result of that, from there we can see that in the long run, there may be an equilibrium number of firms, but because of, again, changes in demand curve, we may see that equilibrium become something new. Okay, so the main idea is, okay, in the short run we have somewhat of a monopolist, but in the long run the economic profits go to 0, and we have a variety of firms producing similar but differentiated products. So which means that we have firms like, if I think about automobiles in the sedan market, they are all very similar, but they have some slight differences, and this difference is reinforced by advertising. Companies then advertise to remind us and to inform us that their product is superior than their competitor's product. So these are the two things about monopolists. Hopefully this lecture was helpful, and I'll see you in a later day. Have a good day. Goodbye.